What is going on YouTube? Running Gun Sports back here with another video. Today is our NFL Weekly News Update video. We just released our Miami Dolphins off-season team review. So if you have not seen that video, please go check it out. Leave it a like down below. As you may know, March Madness is still going on. Oregon State last night did end the Cinderella story of Loyola Chicago, and Oral Roberts was knocked out by Arkansas in a very, very close game. Came down to the last play. Houston annihilated Syracuse, and Baylor took care of business versus Villanova with their 11-point victory. I do have Baylor winning it all in one of my brackets. So, and there's also games going on today for the Sweet 16, see who's making the Elite 8. But we're here to talk about the weekly news coming out of the NFL this week. So as always, please leave a like, a comment, and share this to your friends who love football. And let's get right into the video. So number one, Desean Jackson signed with the LA Rams. Quote, he had other options, but had to play with Sean McVay's offense. And I think it's a pretty good move. The Rams last year really didn't have much of a strong receiving core, and Desean Jackson, who knows how long he'll be around in the league for, maybe not much longer. This could be his last contract he signs in the NFL. But he grew up in the Southern California area, and so I think that it's a good fit for him. Probably why he chose to end up with the Los Angeles Rams. He grew up in Long Beach, California, and I think that that's why he wants to retire there and retire with the Rams and Sean McVay's offense. We'll see how different it is this year without their passing game coordinator, Shane Waldron, who took the job as the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. Speaking of receivers from the Los Angeles Rams, Josh Reynolds has signed with the Tennessee Titans. From the Los Angeles Rams, the Titans this year let go Adam Humphries and Corey Davis. So will he be able to fill in the shoes of Corey Davis? I kind of doubt it. Josh Reynolds is not on the same level as Corey Davis. Will he be able to fill in the shoes of Adam Humphries? Probably, yes. I think that's an achievable goal for Josh Reynolds coming from LA, so we'll see what happens there. Giants signed former Titans cornerback Adoree Jackson, and I think that it's honestly a good fit. A lot of people don't like it at all, and I think the Giants next year will have a very good defense. Xavier McKinney had a great year last year. Eli Apple was very good last year, and of course Jabril Peppers, who had a great end to the season in some big games that they were just short of making the playoffs. But I think that that's going to be a good fit and a good addition for that team. Falcons signed running back Mike Davis and linebacker Bakarvis Mingo. Mike Davis's deal is worth $2 million, 2-year, $5.5 million, and I think it's a decent fit. Todd Gurley came over from the Rams and then went to the Falcons, obviously, and was with them last year and didn't do very much, and it was kind of one of those offseason signings that didn't get a lot of attention. And Todd Gurley, ever since he had that one injury, that he just hasn't been the same since, which is really unfortunate because Todd Gurley was a dominant force in the league for a while. So we'll see if Mike Davis can bring in to the Falcons' backfield, and Bakarvis Mingo did very well with the Seattle Seahawks last year. One last chance for Kevin King. The Packers re-signed the cornerback to a one-year deal worth $6 million with a ton of incentives included. We saw Kevin King in the NFC Championship may have had one of the worst games a cornerback or defensive back or maybe even a player in the game in the NFC Championship has ever had. Giving him 4 touchdowns, just looked like he had never played the sport of football before. Just a horrible game for him, an unfortunate time to have it when your team is trying to make it to the Super Bowl and when you have Tom Brady going against you, and the Packers always seem to make it to the NFC Championship every year and seem to fall just short, especially in the NFC Championship. Joe Flacco signed by the Philadelphia Eagles. Joe Flacco said, quote, "My main job is to play football, not to mentor Jalen Hurts." And those comments by Joe Flacco really interest me because I don't think anyone, when hearing about this news of Joe Flacco signing with the Eagles, thought he would be the starter or having any valuable play time. And apparently Joe Flacco thinks he will, and doubt he will. But let's not forget, Joe Flacco came into the league in 2008, won the Rookie of the Year. He's a Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl 47, beat the 49ers. And so he's not a nobody, but he's also very old now, and he's bounced around with a couple teams. Last year he was with the New York Jets, backed up Sam Darnold. The Bucks re-signed Ndamukong to a one-year deal to keep him around for 1 year, $9 million. I think that's a great move. I've said this many times. The Bucks have a great shot to repeat, especially they have re-signed people. And one of the things is Tom Brady obviously is the main player on that team. And the thing is Tom Brady, he is not like Mahomes or anything in taking a massive contract. Mahomes is taking one of the biggest contracts sports has ever seen, $500 million. And Tom Brady takes a small contract, and right now Tom Brady has won 7 Super Bowls right now, the most by any franchise, but obviously the most by any player. And him taking a smaller contract so they can build a team is just why he is so successful as an NFL quarterback, and why he's done so well in the past years. He doesn't take massive deals like Mahomes, and I'm not bashing Mahomes or anything. But Mahomes takes a big deal, and you've seen the Kansas City Chiefs let go 2 star offensive linemen, and they did sign Joe Thuney from the New England Patriots. But still, at the same time, I just think that that's a lot of money, and when that money can't be going towards anyone but the quarterback, it hurts to have a surrounding foundation. And I truly do think that Travis Kelce, when his contract is up, will not re-sign with the Kansas City Chiefs because he's going to want a lot of money, and they're not going to have that money because it's going towards Mahomes. And Tom Brady taking a pay cut and leaving the money for other players, especially the defense this year. They've signed a lot of their guys, and I think that that's just going to help them have a chance at repeat. Speaking of Super Bowl champs, the Chicago Bears signed Super Bowl 54 champ Damian Williams to a 1-year deal, and I think this is a good move in my opinion. Damian Williams was a part of the reason the Chiefs did so well in that Super Bowl. He opted out of last season, so was no longer with the team anymore. They chose not to re-sign with them, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire doing so well, and I think that that was a good move for him personally. I don't know about the opting out, but I think him not re-signing with the Chiefs helps a lot. And he had a big part in that Super Bowl, is not as much as you see on the stats, but the running game really improved when he was with that team. And when he wasn't there this year, we saw they had no running game, and they struggled to pull away in games where a lot of teams can run the ball out easily with a decent running back, and they didn't really have that. So all they were forced to do is pass the ball, and the game would go by slower. Yet they granted to make it to the Super Bowl, but the defense, the Buccaneers, they really knew how to stop Mahomes, and never seen Mahomes run around that much. 497 yards scrambling away from pressure from the Bucs defense. So we'll see what happens. The Patriots retain running back James White to a 1-year deal. It's a very decent move in my opinion. I think that it's that James White and the Patriots obviously made a ton of deals in the upcoming, or excuse me, in this offseason, and that Damian Harris and James White and Sony Michel have had great years together, and I think last year they were all kind of trying to find out what their workload was, sharing as 3 people. But all those guys are very good running backs, in my opinion, and I think that that trio of running backs is a very good move. And the Patriots have re-signed 2 tight ends, and they've been doing 2 tight ends when they've made their Super Bowl appearances, and I really agree with the move there. The Giants are signing tight end Kyle Rudolph. The team is making Kyle Rudolph have surgery on a leg injury, and that the Giants had heard about the injury. They decided not to make Kyle Rudolph have surgery on it, and the Vikings obviously released Kyle Rudolph, and the Giants have signed him now from free agency, but they are making him have surgery on it. So we'll see what happens, how Kyle Rudolph will do. In my opinion, it's not a very good move. Evan Ingram, who was a Pro Bowl tight end last year, and you sign him, Kyle Rudolph. I'm sure it was for cheap, but if it was for a lot of money, then I really don't get it. But I think that it's going to be nice. Evan Ingram's very young, and I think that the experience will help the team out, but it's not the greatest move in my opinion. You could use that money somewhere else. Where The Jacksonville Jaguars signed former San Francisco quarterback C.J. Beathard as their third stringer or second stringer. We'll see. With Gardner Minshew still around, well, obviously that doesn't look good for him. But I think that with Minshew still there and that signing of C.J. Beathard, it doesn't look good for him. And I think that obviously a lot of people are expecting Trevor Lawrence to be selected in the draft this year, first overall by the Jaguars. So that would be an interesting quarterback room. It already is. Just C.J. Beathard and Gardner Minshew. And I think that C.J. Beathard played in some games this year and last year. He did quite well, honestly. He never really got the chance that he deserved, in my opinion. Jimmy Garoppolo was injured this year, so he got in and he led them to a victory versus the Arizona Cardinals. And he sat behind Nick Mullins, which Beathard really should have been starting over Nick Mullins. I just think he was a little more talented, but that's my opinion. The Colts re-signed veteran wide receiver T.Y. Hilton, and they still have $31 million in cap space, which is absolutely insane. I think that that's just crazy for them to rebuild. I think Carson Wentz can get back to that MVP form with good receivers. Obviously, the receivers he had in Philadelphia are nowhere near close to what the Colts have right now. And the Colts made the playoffs last year. They got a newer head coach, and I just think that that's going to be a good fit. Carson Wentz, I think the Colts are really going to shock a lot of people next year. They could honestly win the AFC South because the Titans are really having a terrible offseason. They've let a lot of guys go that they really shouldn't have let go. So we'll see what happens with the AFC South. Tevin Coleman signs a 1-year, $2 million deal with the New York Jets. I think that it's a pretty good move considering the fact that their running back is Frank Gore, and he's probably the second youngest skill position player behind Tom Brady, and he's been around forever, and he's still back for another year, and that's just really shocking because he's so old and he's out there, but he's not doing much at all. He's just so old, and it's crazy that he's still out there. And Tevin Coleman's pretty young, so hopefully he can bring some young talent to that team. In 2020, he played 8 games. He sat out half the year due to an injury. The Browns are, quote, obsessed with the Titans defensive lineman Jadeveon Clowney. He visited the team this past week, and I think that I don't understand why they'd make this move. The Browns, we saw in the playoff game versus the Kansas City Chiefs, that was their strong suit of that team, was that defensive line, and adding Jadeveon Clowney makes really 0 sense to me. I mean, it boosts the defensive line, obviously, but Jadeveon Clowney also wants a lot of money, and he got injured. That is why the reason the Seattle Seahawks didn't re-sign him. They let him go because it's too big of a risk. I think Jadeveon Clowney is a good player, but I don't think it's worth the risk at the end of the day because the Seattle Seahawks decided to not take the risk of re-signing him, and he did get injured in Tennessee. So we'll see what happens if Jadeveon Clowney lands with the Browns or if he's back with the Titans. Arizona Cardinals signed cornerback Malcolm Butler to a 1-year deal after being cut by the Tennessee Titans. As I talked about just a few minutes ago, the Titans are really struggling this offseason, and it's kind of unfortunate because they're losing a lot of their key cornerbacks, and their secondary was not very good last year. And, if their starters aren't that good, I can't imagine their backups are any better. So we'll see what happens. Arizona is a place where Malcolm Butler was a Super Bowl hero for the New England Patriots. Carlos Dunlap re-signed by the Seattle Seahawks after being cut by them, and then they did release Jarran Reed, which in my opinion is a horrible move. Jarran Reed, with his 5 years in Seattle, he had 194 total tackles, 22 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 100 solo tackles. And Carlos Dunlap signed a 2-year, $60 million deal. Jarran Reed, he's young. He doesn't put up the numbers that Carlos Dunlap puts up, but he's also way younger, has more potential, and I think could progress to be a better player than Carlos Dunlap. And the concern was for Seattle to not sign him is that he was asking for too much money, which I think that if they think that, then they really shouldn't have re-signed a guy that they had cut from the team for a 2-year, $16 million deal. In my opinion, I just think it's a terrible move by Seattle. I think Carlos Dunlap can still get it done, but if they're going to re-sign Carlos Dunlap after cutting him, then why would they not re-sign Jarran Reed? And he was a big part of that defense last year. And the defensive line, I don't think was the problem for that defense. It was definitely the secondary, and that just hurts a lot for them to release Jarran Reed after he obviously those stats are very good, and I don't understand what the move is there, why they'd sign Carlos Dunlap but let him go. I just think that the Seattle front office is not very good right now. If they're not careful, Russell Wilson will not be around with them for probably next year when his contract is expired, so we'll see what happens. The Washington football team signs former Titans wide receiver Adam Humphries. The Cardinals are likely to sign Colt McCoy after a visit with the Arizona Cardinals this week. Pretty good move for a backup. We saw Colt McCoy come in and beat the Seattle Seahawks team we were just talking about in an upset victory, and it's just really that's just shows you how bad the Seattle Seahawks secondary is when you lose to Colt McCoy. I mean, it's just terrible, and you hope that the Seahawks do better. But they also did let go Shaquille Griffin, who was above average but was very inconsistent at times, and that's how I describe that Seattle Seahawks team. They'll come out and against a team like the Giants and they'll lose the game, and then they'll come out against a team that they should lose to and win it, and so it's just really odd. And I just think that I don't think Pete Carroll's as great as a coach as some people claim to be, and the Seahawks I feel like have never recovered ever since that Super Bowl play by Malcolm Butler in Arizona on the goal line. I just can't believe that that was the choice that was made by Pete Carroll to throw the ball with Marshawn Lynch on the 1-yard line. I just question it every day. The Dolphins trade with the 49ers. The Dolphins trade the number 3 overall pick in this year's 2021 NFL Draft to the San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers send over the their first round pick for this year, 2021, the number 12 pick in the draft, a third round pick for 2021, and a first round pick for the 2022 NFL Draft and the 2023 NFL Draft. And I talked about this in the last video because we were talking about the Dolphins and their offseason review. And I think that the Dolphins, man, we could talk about the Seahawks, who have maybe one of the second worst front offices. I'll give the Bears the worst front office in the league right now. And then you have the Dolphins, who are right now the best. They're in such a good position. 4 out of the top 50 picks in this year's NFL Draft after going 10-6 and being just a game short of making the playoffs. It's ridiculous that they have that much potential as a team to rebuild that team that doesn't even need to be rebuilded that much. Think if they can figure out if Tua can play more consistent and they can get better receivers for him, I don't think they'll have a problem at all trying to make the playoffs for the next few years. But a first round pick this year, a third round pick this year, and 2 first round picks in the future is crazy. And who will the 49ers take is the real question. And I got to think it's going to be a quarterback if they're trading up so early to go from number 12 to number 3. And I think it will be Trey Lance or Zach Wilson. Right now, I do think it'll be Trey Lance because Trey Lance has had his pro day, and he did very well in his pro day. And I think that will be the move for the 49ers to pick up Trey Lance with the 3rd overall pick in the draft. I don't think Trey Lance will do very well in the NFL personally. I just think that the talent of play that he goes against and a guy like Mac Jones or Justin Fields go against at the top level, or Trevor Lawrence, is not even comparable. And I think that that's not going to help him at all when he's in the NFL facing professional athletes. I do think that the 49ers will either pick him or Zach Wilson. They both had great pro days, but I just don't think that him or Zach Wilson will have a good future in the NFL. And maybe they will draft Justin Fields, but right now my pick for the 49ers to draft 3rd overall is Trey Lance with that 3rd overall pick. The Raiders signed wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens, Willie Snead. The Raiders let go Tyrell Williams this year, so probably a good replacement for him, in my opinion. We'll see how well Willie Snead fits in. He's quite old, and the Ravens have never really had a good receiving core in a while, and that's why Lamar Jackson struggles so much. A lot of people say that he can't pass the ball. Well, he has no one really to pass the ball. Marquis Brown, who may be just one of the more overrated players in the league as a receiver coming out of Oklahoma. I just think that he's not as good as people claim he is to be. He drops the ball a lot, and I just don't see that being a number 1 receiver, an elite number 1 receiver in the NFL. Also, the Ravens signed Sammy Watkins after letting go Willie Snead. I think that that's a good move, as I just was just mentioning. They don't have very good receivers. The Ravens don't, and Sammy Watkins is a very good receiver. He's probably had better years than he's had in the past few years, but he did win a Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs had one of the best receiving cores. I think though that the Bucks probably have a better receiving core right now, and I just think that Sammy Watkins with the Buccaneers, or excuse me, with the Chiefs was a good fit. But like I said earlier, the contract and demand of Mahomes' price is just so much, and it's honestly so much for the other player, for the front office to handle, with all that money going towards one guy, and you can't put it back into anything else. I mean, 10 years, it's a 10-year contract. I don't think we've ever seen a 10-year contract in the NFL by a player before, and I just think that I don't think that Mahomes is overrated by any means, but $503 million is $500 million. No one in the history of the NFL, not even a coach, not the greatest coach ever, not the greatest football player ever, has received that much money. And Mahomes, I do think, has a shot to become the greatest football player of all time, but that's so much money, and it's just crazy that it's great that they believe in him, but who says Mahomes doesn't go out and tear his ACL next year and never recovers from the injury? That's my concern. For a 10-year deal, $503 million. It's just a ridiculous amount of money, and you can't put it back into any of your players. So we'll see what happens. The 49ers sign wide receiver Mohamed Sanu. I think that's a good fit. The 49ers have had mediocre receiving cores in the past year. Mohamed Sanu's been around for a while. He was with the Atlanta Falcons for a bit, and now with the 49ers, I think it's a good move. The Vikings sign defensive back Xavier Woods. I think this is another good move. The Vikings signed Patrick Peterson. The Vikings, I think, secondary is going to be very good this year. Eric Kendricks really had an off year, but if they can get Eric Kendricks, Patrick Peterson, Harrison Smith, and Xavier Woods to all work together in unison, I think it'd be a very good fit. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you guys did not already, please leave a like down below. Share this to your friends, and thank you.